They had a bunch of uphill battles and a cost infrastructure that was just upside down. So we thought that we could grow our way out of it, which is not a great philosophy, but first rodeo. And you got to think about it. The reason it's a horrible way to make money is every customer is insane. At the end of the day, any contractor is going to clean. So the customer, what sticks with them isn't what you did for them, it's how they felt after you did it. You've heard the adage that, a happy customer tells 5 people, an unhappy person tells everyone.
Welcome back to Business Hats Podcast. Today I have a very special guest, Mike Kaplan, a founder of, did I say it right, Kaplan?
Yep,
Kaplan.
You got it.
Founder of Zero Rez, and I'm pretty sure he wore way more business hats than that. Welcome to the show. Love your last name, Kaplan University here in Minneapolis. Actually, the school that I went to become a licensed contractor back in the day.
I wish I could take credit for it.
Well, welcome to the show. Let's start as early as we possibly can in your early career. How many business hats have you had in your business life?
Boy, with any small acquisition or startup, you're going to be the guy sweeping the floors, the marketer, the finance person, chief repeating officer, growth engine. I mean, they're countless. I am very blessed to have had enough success that I've been able to fire myself from wearing many of the hats that you can wear. It doesn't fit quite right, but you kind of suck at it. So it's been nice to be able to move on. And today I wear, I guess, a couple of hats. I've got a marketing agency that helps place media, SEO, pay-per-click, that sort of stuff, TV, radio. And then the other hat I wear is at a private equity group that I started with my partner, Mike Delkey, and we source deals, leaders, and capital in the home service and trades.
Love it. So you're an angel investor.
Angel investor, I would say, is really like early round, either pre-revenue or before a business kind of knows what it is. We buy cash flow. So we're not looking at startups. We're looking at company that puts in drain tile in a basement and it's been doing it for 40 years. That sort of stuff.
Let's start with a company that you're probably the most known for, the co-founder of Zero Rez.
Almost. My business partners and I bought a 3-truck, 2-employee carpet cleaning company in Minnesota.
How did you get to that? How did you get in the cleaning, and why cleaning industry?
Well, I did it the way everyone does it, via law school, right? Yeah. No. So I wanted to get a head on my shoulders. I actually looked at starting up Jimmy John's out in Boston.
What did you do before that? Like at that time, as you were looking for Jimmy John's or cleaning?
I was a BBQ Judge.
Okay.
I had an internship at UBS Payne Weber in Atlanta, and I was judging barbecue on the Memphis Inmate barbecue circuit.
How do you judge barbecue? I love barbecue.
Oh, no kidding.
I'm going to have some tomorrow at Dallas. But
oh, man. Hard 8.
Hard
8.
2 weeks ago, I was in Dallas, and I asked my Facebook friends to recommend me barbecue place. And Hard 8, and there was one more. People keep commenting. And I actually went to Hard 8. They had one just outside of airport. It's like 8-minute drive.
Okay.
Went to Hard 8, loved it.
It's so good.
Yeah, it is.
It's a special place in my heart. So, graduated.
But how do you judge it? Like, what's the job? Was it a job? No. Was it a gig? Was it?
So, post college, I'm kind of driving through the South and ended up in Alabama at some roadside spot and just had this killer, white bread, pulled pork, sauce on the side, and I was ranting to my sister about it. Didn't have a cell phone. It's like, 2002. And, I'm at a payphone rocking, talking about this great barbecue. And she said, "Oh, I just read this thing about barbecue contests." And I looked it up, and you paid, this 2002, you paid like $50 to spend a day learning and getting trained to be a barbecue judge. They teach you the categories and they have pit masters come in and make food, and you talk through the different elements, and then you're trained, and then after you judge 3 contests, you become certified. And I was able to help judge the World Championship on the Memphis MA circuit in 2003 because I was a trained, certified Memphis MA barbecue judge.
Wow.
And basically, you pay your own way, you get paid in food, but you
get paid in food.
You're meeting these people.
That's about right.
Well, but these guys, they're spending thousands. They build their own smokers. They are, buying all the best meat, and everyone's got their own technique. And I use apple and cherry wood, or it's a beautiful culture. And you meet these people, and then you hang out, drink some bourbon, listen to some bluegrass. It's a pretty good gig. Doesn't pay, but
okay. So from there, you're looking at the franchises. Why franchise versus starting your own?
I grew up in Minnesota, and the best sandwich shop I knew of was Jimmy John's, and I just loved the environment, and went to school out in the Northeast and didn't see anything like it. Everything was, fried meat sandwiches, grinders or, things like that. And I just thought the delivery model and the franchise theme would play really well. And I got a little bit pregnant, got kind of down the way, had met with the franchisor, and they changed their capitalization requirements, was issue 1. So they wanted me to fully collateralize 8 stores up front. So I came up a couple million short. And issue 2, I started thinking through things and said, well, all right, so I've got these contracts with approved vendors that the franchisor says I can use. What if my tomatoes don't show up? What if, the Roma that they specified from the particular vendor, what if it didn't show up? And can I use a different vendor? Am I in trouble for doing that? Do I have recourse against the vendor who stiffed me on the tomatoes? And I thought, you know what? If I'm getting stuck on tomatoes, maybe I'm not ready to go out and spend all my money on a franchise. So thought about a JD or an MBA, and decided law school was a great way to get a head on my shoulders without wanting to practice law. It was an alternative to an MBA.
I see. How did you get into cleaning?
Well, I didn't grow up with a passion for textiles, and never said, I just love cleaning carpet. But I wrote a bunch of business plans and threw away a bunch of business plans, looked at acquisitions and startups, and ran into a guy who was hunting buddies with a friend of mine who had carpet cleaning experience. And his name was Jim, and still is Jim, actually. And Jim was in real estate and was looking at buying this struggling franchise system in Minnesota. And he brought my buddy in, and he vetted it and said, yep, the cleaning's the real deal. By the way, my brother and his friend Michael are looking to start or buy a business. Maybe you guys should talk. And so we came in as part capital and part sweat, and Jim was capital, no sweat. And then Ryan and Sean were just, sweat guys. And Ryan and Sean left in 08, 09. And at that time, Jim's world, real estate investor, kind of exploded. And so he joined the business and hopped in right as the business is taken off. We got some great press and kind of figured out our media model. We bought a company that was doing about, $320,000 and losing money. And in 08,
What attracted you to that business? You said that you love the cleaning, you like the model, but they were losing money. But what was still attracted to it?
They had out-of-state ownership. They had a bunch of uphill battles and a cost infrastructure that was just upside down. So we thought that we could grow our way out of it, which is not a great philosophy, but first rodeo. And so we decided we'd pay way too much for it and just run hard. And I was going into my last year of grad school, and we really started taking off once that wrapped up. I just tried to keep the lights on and find efficiencies through routing and through our cost structure, and we were able to do that. But the thing that I loved about the business was it is a green cleaning company, and it was before green was really a thing. Green in 2006 to me meant, all right, you're going organic. You're going to buy small overripe bananas with bugs in them to go organic, but you're sacrificing quality. This cleaning system had a proprietary water technology that eliminated traditional chemistry from the equation. And like if you put shampoo into a carpet and try to vacuum it out, you're going to leave a lot of shampoo. If you don't put shampoo in and you're putting a water-based product like they use, electrolyzed oxidative water, it evaporates, doesn't leave a sticky residue, which it's great that it's organic, but you get a better cleaning result because there's no dirt magnets. No, shampoo's really good at attracting dirt. If you don't use it, you don't leave it, carpets don't resoil as quickly.
I see. Was the name already Zero Rez, or you came up with it later?
Nope. I'm responsible for some of the taglines and a lot of the marketing, but did not name it. So it was and always will be Zero Rez.
Love it. So you bought Zero Rez, and so you bought it outright, 100%. You bought the entire name and the business model.
So it is a franchise. Typical franchising, you go out, you buy a Jimmy John's or a Papa John's or any John's. They've probably made a lot of pizzas and sandwiches before starting a franchise. This franchise system, they had this water technology, and they didn't have a service model, a media model, a pricing model that made any sense. And they sold early stage a lot of franchises, 20, 30 franchises to people in their community that really, really struggled. So while it was a franchise, we had a whole lot of leeway to craft the brand and find best practices. I don't think I would want to do it again, but in my early and mid 20s, it seemed like a great gig, and I just dove in. So it is franchising, but we were able to open up 6 locations and spent about 12 years doing it. Scaled pretty well, had a ton of fun, but it was not a traditional franchising experience.
What did industry look like at this 2006, 2007? What other people were doing? Were other franchises already rising, or it was?
So most of the franchisees in the ZEROREZ system at that time were struggling. The predominant player in the market was Stanley Steamer. We got involved in the local cleaning market. They were doing $5-6 million going into the recession. They ended up selling back to their franchisor, running just 4 trucks, doing about $1 million, maybe $800,000, something like that. So the big guys in the markets really got hurt when the market shifted and consumers kind of tightened their purse strings. We were just a tiny tot at the time, so we didn't have the cost infrastructure. We had cracked the code on the media model, and so the business started to flourish, and we were able to grab market share because most of the industry players were struggling. So there were a fair number of franchises, but the industry's chucking its truck. It's owner operator, maybe a couple of crews. They're really typically artisans more so than business people.
What do you mean by cracked up the media part? So you became a media company? Because I remember I went to flooring business at the time, 2010, 2011, and I've heard Zero Rez in Atlanta, Georgia, on all the radios everywhere. Then I moved to Minneapolis in 2013. You guys were everywhere.
Yeah.
Every TV, every radio, but you went into business when everybody was getting out of business and hurt. I was the same way. I went into business because the guy I used to work for filed bankruptcy, and I told my wife I'll never work to him. It's funny how it works. The recession is actually good for the business because it will clear the big and bulky and not efficient, and it'll feed the hungry kids and raise them to the top. And you were the hungry kid. What did you do different than Stanley Steamer could not do?
Well, I think that we got vocal at a time when everyone else started playing defense. Warren Buffett's got a great phrase that I'll butcher, but he says, when the tide goes out, you'll see you swimming naked. And what that means to me is when the market gets tough and you start dealing with an '08 type recession, the bloated cost infrastructure, the lack of margin, you've got fat and happy companies that are just trotting along and they're not sharp, they're not nimble, they don't have tons of cash, they get caught. And I think the Stanley Steamers of the world got caught.
Are they still in business?
They are, yeah. And I mean, it's a national brand, but I think the ownership was second generation. First generation doesn't get caught the same way because they had to bootstrap it. Second generation can get caught a lot easier. And second and third generation have a real hard time keeping the lights on when financial adversity rises. So in 2006, we flipped a coin. Heads on marketing, tails on accounting. I didn't have particular aptitude for either, but I got marketing and kind of got a real world MBA in it. And I inherited a radio program. So small little radio spend on a tiny, nearly defunct radio station now. And, it was bringing in a little bit of business. It wasn't paying for itself, but, I was trying to figure it out. So I just obsessed about it. And when the recession hit, we had gotten a little bit of good press from a newspaper article we got published. And we went around to all the radio stations in the market and said, listen, the unsold seat flies with the airplane. You've got all this extra inventory, all these seats that haven't sold. You can either hang on to them and either not run an ad, run a station promo, or spiff the ad to someone who's paying you, or you can give them to me, and I'll pay you when I get a customer. And 10 out of 13 radio stations said, fuck off. They told me where I could shove it. But a couple said, it's interesting. Let's come up with a variation on that. So we paid a very little amount and then paid a pay for performance model, like AdWords, pay for a click. And the first month of doing that on the biggest station in the market, KQRS, we booked, like 15 jobs. We just got our butt kicked. But it was, 20 below in February of '09. Just horrible conditions. Wow. Our second month, we retooled. We changed up the pricing structure. I became the co-radio talent along with, the on-air DJ. She was fantastic, but didn't really understand, the service offering. So she was the credibility. I was the content, and then she made an offer. We booked 450 jobs the second month, and they're $300 a job. We had capacity to do maybe 350 or 400 jobs total with our trucks and our guys. So all of a sudden we're booked out 7 weeks, 8 weeks.
Wow.
And then the other radio stations started saying, hey, it sounds like you got a model here. Can we play ball? Because again, in '09, PepsiCo and Chevy and
they all pulled out.
They all pulled out. Everyone stopped advertising because the world's collapsing. Mm-hmm. But we had 5 carpet cleaning trucks and a couple of guys, and we're like, well, let's see what we can do. So before you know it, 08, we were at about $1.2 million. We did 2.5, 5, 8, 11 million in consecutive years, and then started kind of going out of state and taking the model to Omaha and Pittsburgh and St. Louis.
So radio was the most effective advertising for you?
It's bonkers. It shouldn't work, but it really, really does. We did plenty of door hangers and print mail and select live and local TV, SEO, SEM, all that sort of stuff. But radio was the breadwinner.
To this day?
I am fortunate to not be involved in carpet cleaning anymore. So I don't know exactly what they're doing, but I sold my stake in the company in 2018 to open up a marketing agency because my phone kept ringing for marketing help. So I've got Banana Stand Marketing, and then I've got a private equity group that invests in home service and the trades. I get to source deals, leaders, and capital, and just kind of empower people to go out and kick some butt. So yeah, I haven't really been in touch.
But
in the last
overall,
handful
for
of years.
service business, would you say the radio is still on top, or like what else comes close to the results you can get from radio for the dollar spent?
I always look at marketing in terms of an apple tree, right? They talk about low-hanging fruit. There isn't a ton of it, but it's cheaper free. And I think, all right, you've got this big apple bucket. If you got a ton of employees, you're trying to fill a huge bucket. If you got a couple of employees, you're trying to fill a much smaller bucket. But you're trying to fill your capacity with apples. So start with the cheap and free. Are you posting on Nextdoor? Do you have an Angie's account? Are you doing Google My Business? Then okay, you got all these free apples. It's only filling a little bit of your bucket. So you start going up the apple tree and grabbing more expensive apples. And the more expensive means the customer acquisition cost is higher. But let's say you've got a 50% cost of goods sold. To break even on a customer acquisition, technically you could spend 50% of the job to acquire the customer, then you spend 50% to do the job, and you're no worse off. You've filled capacity. So that's the highest, most expensive apple you can afford to buy without losing money. And there are reasons you'd want a loss leader, or you could justify losing money, but I don't like to do that. So if you set the bar really high, if you've got in pressure washing, if you've got a $1,000 job average and a 40% cost of goods sold, you could spend 60% or $600 to acquire a customer. You don't have to, but you work your way down. Radio crushes when you're ready to address a broad market. It's not targeted. You can target behaviors, but you're not targeting geography. I like door hangers. I like Google Guaranteed. Facebook ads crush. EDDM crushes. Postcarding specific neighborhoods is fantastic with big oversized postcards. So I don't start with radio, but when someone says, "Hey, I've got the capacity to address a market," in Minneapolis we've got 2.5 million people. We've got a great radio market. Not all markets are great radio markets, but in the Twin Cities, or Denver or Seattle, comparable size markets, comparable demographics, good radio, not oversaturated. If you've got 10 to 50,000 bucks ready to deploy for marketing, absolutely, radio is fantastic. But if you're in Poughkeepsie or Savannah, I wouldn't be buying radio because they're not radio markets.
Love it. It's interesting that you said it, but also I filmed a video this morning, or scripted the video we're about to film after this podcast. And I said that contractors who don't have leads have this problem, because what I found is most contractors, and I'm talking about not smaller service like pressure washing or carpet cleanings, but your roofers, your siding installers, guys who do big items, like concrete guys, 10, 20 grand items, they all have receptionist problem. As I travel across the country, if I want to test someone, right, like I go to Google My Business or their website, number one complaint that homeowners have, that they're not returning the phone calls. So you call the contractor, you don't get...
It hurts.
It hurts. Like, you don't call them within 5 minutes, that's it. Like, you don't have lead generation problem. You don't have marketing problem. You have receptionist problem. And so many just don't get it. They waste all these monies on all the marketers, or they hire agencies or marketers like website gurus and Facebook ad gurus, and then they don't turn their phone on and they're never available. And homeowner, expectancy these days is very short. Like, it's no more than 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. You call them back next day, guess what? It's a cold call. They don't know who you are anymore.
So there's a lot in that statement, and I think generally speaking, you're right. When a customer is acquired or a prospect is acquired through something that's very transactional, where they saw they came across your website or they got a postcard, things like that don't have a story behind them. So you're a commodity. You're just a roofer, mm-hmm. and they don't know your name. There's no brand equity. and a customer is not willing to wait for something that they believe is commoditized because ABC Co is the same as XYZ Co. If you, and this isn't a pitch for radio, but radio and TV tell a story and people start to give a damn about, hey, I want this company for these reasons. This is the group.
They see it everywhere. They hear it all the time.
So the urgency is different because they've got their favorite radio host raving about the customer service. They've got testimonials that you put on the radio.
But can
or
you
TV.
still ruin it if they don't get back to you on time?
You absolutely can. My point, I think, is that when you've got a brand and people care about the brand or have been given reason to care, the urgency decreases. They're willing to wait a little bit. They're not going to wait a week if you put in a request and nobody responds. But if you...
They'll wait for you.
Yeah, they'll give you a couple days.
So for Zero Rez, how did you fix the answering service? Was it national for all the franchises, or each local one answered their own phone calls? What was the average response time?
We staffed up. It was a very different hiring environment in the early teens than it is today. But we had a call center of 30, 40 people because we had the same concerns that you do. Customer service. And the experience really suffers if you're not on it. So we encourage people to fill out forms online, and then we could get back to them within 30 minutes, ideally quicker. Sure. But if they pick up the phone, we're advertising 952 ZEROREZ, and people learned that phone number and called it. We had to have the team on site to answer. And I always had the philosophy, if a team member isn't at my holiday party because they're a contractor, they can't possibly care enough. So I was very anti-sub. I have some businesses today that utilize subcontractors, and they're fantastic. But you definitely have to work with them differently because, again, if they're not part of the family and coming in to your office, it's really difficult. But sometimes finding a virtual assistant or fractional call center that can, if it goes 3 rings and you don't get it, they get it, can be the best answer because, folks coming in calling about a $30,000 roof, like that's a big drop. If you miss it, every at-bat's vital.
Absolutely. I mean, today you have so many call centers, so many options, even ChatGPT, like there's like semi-automatic responses that you can generate with the voice, with the text that feels like you're talking to the human, which is in reality just automation. But
for sure,
you have to have answer to that. Like you can't ignore the calls. I watched few complaints online, and one of the common thing is that ZEROREZ was no different than others. Like, how did you stand out from the competition? Because you're not the only one who used the clear water. There's few others. Some people do say that you still use some chemicals here and there, but you were getting away because you were cleaning them with the water, but you still preconditioners and stuff. Yep.
Yeah.
And the complaints were not bad, but I guess people would try to expose the ZEROREZ. My theory is like you were advertised that you were so special and you're so different, and other providers was like, they're not that special. We all do the same thing. And when you look at it, like it was, some, I guess some technology that was unique to you, but in reality, that's not why you stand out. Is it true or false?
I can't speak to what they're doing today, but when I was involved in the business, we used electrolyzed oxidative water. So you take salt, tap water, and electrical current, and it breaks up H2O and NaCl, salt and tap water. And it repackages the molecules, and you end up with 2 products. One is very low pH, one is very high pH. One is like bleach, one is like soap. So you get hypochlorous acid and sodium hydroxide. And you've got cleaning efficacy that really does kick butt, and it removes the majority of the industrial chemicals, and it doesn't leave the cleaning process doesn't leave anything in the carpet that would be a magnet for dirt. Now, a third party could go in and, Rick's carpet cleaning company could go in using traditional chemistry and do an acid rinse. High pH attracts dirt. So if you leave a high pH shampoo or something in the carpet, you can neutralize it with acid. You're pumping more chemistry in. You don't want your dogs and kids playing on it. It has that green effect, and the ability to effectively cover the surface and get all of the soap neutralized isn't there. So typical carpet cleaning, you have a need to clean the carpet again a lot quicker than with ZEROREZ, and that's not just anecdotal. It's they've tested the snot out of it. So
love it. You sold me on it. Like, as you speak, sorry to interrupt, but you sold me on it. Like I want to use it and I want to buy it for my own carpet job. But you did not have a sales process. You're order taker. Or do you like explain that on the radio as a host, like become a media company? Or did you have a sales process when people call and ask questions?
So you can tell I've given that speech, as it were, a couple of times. I used to answer the phones. I mean, you asked how many hats I wore. I've cleaned carpet. I've done finance. I've done media. I've been a phone answerer. And there's a story as to why we are what we are, why the product is what it is. A very soft sales pitch that basically says, give us a try. And when I was involved, we had it set up where our job wasn't to build a ticket, it was to get in the home. And then you get to do show and tell and brag about your services, show results, and then build the ticket on site. So
what was your average ticket?
I was $320.
$320.
It's a horrible way to make money. I mean, you can do it, and you can make a lot of money doing it, but I very much prefer $6,000 or $60,000 tickets than making it up in volume.
And I can, as the more I think about it, I was in flooring business for the first couple of years in Atlanta, and the hardest part was liability, moving furniture. How did you deal with that? Like, did you ever have claims for moving someone's furniture? Because people are crazy. They'll accuse you of things
of course,
that you've never done.
Well, and you got to think about it. The reason it's a horrible way to make money is every customer is insane. So you call and you say, oh, Miss Johnson, do you have any pets in the home? Oh, no, we don't. Well, they have a puppy farm. But they're not my pets, but we do have 200 dogs in the basement. Okay, well, that changes things. And, carpet fibers, without geeking out too much, carpet fibers, they're manufactured, they're tightly wound. Introduce sand, salt, dust, dander, and walk on them, and they fray. And you can clean 100%, get all the dirt out, but you're not able to put them in a time machine and get them back together. They're going to look different in the traffic areas than in the areas you don't walk on. So we've got a 22-year-old guy driving a 10,000-pound truck in a snowstorm, trying to have that conversation with Mrs. Johnson about hey, this is a pre-existing condition. We're gonna clean it, but clean doesn't always look new. It's a tough hurdle. We obsessed about service, and we realized really early on that at the end of the day, any contractor is going to clean. So the customer, what sticks with them isn't what you did for them, it's how they felt after you did it. And so using books like Raving Fans, we really obsessed about the customer experience, but it's a whole lot of work for $300.
Is this why you got out of it? Because you get burned out with the customers, or?
No, I mean, I fired myself from a lot of daily active, operations. I was on the marketing committee, finance committee, and ownership team. But partner conflict, to cut straight to it. My value system and my partner's value system reached a point of misalignment and was ruptured, and it just, we tried what we could to reconcile it and just decided, hey, let's go different different paths. And, I wish I had done it years earlier. It's really hard to make a transition like that because, my ability to pay for kids' daycare was tied to this business relationship. We had, 8 or 10 different LLCs set up that owned real estate and flipped houses and owned carpet cleaning companies across the country and scraped royalties. And, it was a big transition, but never knew how liberating it would be to, take a different path and find partners that I have better alignment with.
Well, can you give advice to someone in the service or construction industry how to deal with a difficult customer, like the one who told you they don't have pets and they have 200 of them and it's not theirs, who kind of like misleads you and then wants you to do unreasonable?
Read the book Raving Fans.
Yeah.
It is exceptional, and I think a lot of my philosophies and techniques are adopted from that. But I always would approach things from a perspective of if I tell you before there's a problem, the customer owns it. If I tell you after there's a problem, I as the contractor own it. So, if I'm going in and didn't have the fiber construction conversation and I clean and it doesn't look great, I haven't managed their expectations. That's on me. If I go in and I say, Mrs. Johnson, this traffic pattern, I'm going to get it perfectly clean, but right now it's a 2. It's got some fiber damage. I can get it up to a 6 or a 7, but we're not going to 10. My time machine's broken, so I'm not going to be able to back to the future.
Phrase.
So now she's immunized, and I'm not responsible for how she accepts the truth. I'm responsible for delivering it politely and humanely. So she's pissed that it's not going to look perfect. Well, I told her I can't really be held responsible for that. The second point I would make is that, you've heard the adage that, a happy customer tells 5 people, an unhappy person tells everyone. We had an approach to service that would say, all right, we want to fix the problem, not just refund. It's $300, so it's not a big deal. One room didn't turn out great. Hey, we'll give you $60. We would try to not do that, not because of the money, but because of the impact. If I give $60 back because there's a spot or stain that didn't clean up in the living room, they've got their money, but every time they walk in, they're still saying, damn, Zero Rez. But if I can go back out and fix it, then I'm the hero. So if it came to it and the customer's like, no, I just need my money back, I'd say, well, Ms. Johnson, I certainly can give your money back. A check's going to be written this afternoon, but I can only do that if you let me come back out and fix the issue. And it's when people are pissed, when there's a strong emotional reaction about the service, doing whatever you can to fix it and really golden rule it, really, in my mind, is the only way, because leaving that stain or that problem, they're still not happy, even though they got the money back.
Wow, so powerful. Let's talk about earning potential for someone who wants to get in the business today. Is there money in the cleaning business? Would you recommend someone start their own thing or buy existing franchise? Is market too saturated for new players? Is it hard to get in the cleaning? Because small ticket items, $300, marketing is probably expensive. You need to put money up front. How much it will take spending your own money before you actually start earning a living? And is there opportunities today?
Cleaning is very low barrier to entry. There's no licensure to be a janitorial company or a carpet cleaner or a housekeeper. Those sort of things are very low cost. Carpet cleaning, you could go out. I hired a guy, one of my favorite employees, Matt. We hired him. He printed off an insurance quote, didn't have insurance, but he had a quote. And he, bought a used portable cleaner for a couple $100, and he was out cleaning carpet. And he realized that, it's actually a hard business to run, but $300, he's in business and he's competing against me. And we would go out and we'd buy $78,000 trucks. And, when we opened up Pittsburgh, we had one employee, 4 trucks, and spent $22,000 a month on radio, day one.
Wow.
not how most people go about it and not how you have to. I think it can be a very good starter business. Obviously, I mean, it treated me very well. It was very profitable and, scaled bigger than many. I don't think it has to for someone to feed their family. And I think there's definitely merits to the industry. I would talk my kids out of starting a carpet cleaning company.
You would?
The revenue's not as sticky as many industries. I mean, open an accounting firm or a bookkeeping firm, and you've got reoccurring revenue that looks very different than the type of reoccurring revenue you have with a carpet cleaner, where you're kind of hoping they call you back. There isn't an effective subscription model. Roofing, same thing. There's a great opportunity. You can make bazillions of dollars, but do you really have a customer, or do you have a transaction?
It's a transaction because it's once in 10 years or 15 years as they need it.
Yeah, and I'm not saying I'd prefer a gutter cleaning company to a roofing company, but I do own several gutter cleaning companies and no roofing companies.
I love it.
So
I did not know that. Why gutter cleaning? I love that space, by the way.
Oh, I love it. Gutter cleaning, roof cleaning, pressure washing, paver sealing, pretty much everything exterior but trees and lawn care. It's a space that has a much higher ticket than carpet cleaning. It's reoccurring in a way that carpet cleaning isn't, and I kind of fell into it. But we had a time where, and we still do it once in a while, where we made micro investments in home service companies. So guys doing a couple million will buy 20 or 30%. We'll put cash into the business to give them some bullets to fire, and then we will guide them about how to fire themselves from having a job where they're self-employed to having an asset that's a business that's running on systems. And gutter cleaning, it just it's a need. You can tell a great story about it. It's reoccurring, and it's an entree into ancillary services where hey, I've got a pressure washer on my truck. I just cleaned your gutters. Can I take a crack at your driveway and show you what it'll look like? And before you know it, you upsell a couple $100. Your costs of goods sold are super low, and your customer acquisition costs are non-existent. And it gives you an opportunity where you can overpay your field labor, and so they're walking home fat and happy and telling all their friends, "Hey, you got to come work here because I just made way too much money."
Love it. This is so genius. How did marketing change in the past 5 years? We're in 2023. You sold it 2018. We have a rise of TikTok. Facebook is different. Google is changing. GPT is here. What else is changing, in your opinion?
I think there's been a lot of consolidation in the market, and so there are a lot more players that are investing in big market, old school media like TV and radio. The most exciting things that I've found are digital products and some of the old school tactics as well. In the roofing industry, we've had great success with EDDM, with door hangers, things like that. Every door direct mail, just to dumb it down. Sorry. But also streaming pre-roll. There's a product called OTT, over the top television. So pretty much if you're a cord cutter and you don't have Comcast or you're not watching network, if you have a Hulu subscription or an Amazon subscription and you're watching something that has ads embedded, you're able to do a lot of the things you can do with cable, but on a bigger scale, because people are killing cable and they're signing on for Hulu and Paramount and all that stuff. And rather than saying, hey, I want people who watch Fox News, you're saying, I want a homeowner that lives in Maple Grove, Minnesota, that has pets, 2 or more kids, and makes above $250,000 a year. And I can buy that customer, that audience, using streaming TV techniques. Same thing with Facebook. You can have a whole lot of fun doing targeted ads, and the ROI is just. I know Facebook's not new technology, but it's still so powerful. But I always try to max out the low hanging fruit. Pay per click, Google guaranteed, things like that, and then I work my way up. And but with EDDM, you can get a prospect for under $60, and on a roof replacement, that's not a bad gig.
It's not. Love it. What's your take on BBB, Home Advisor, those platforms who show up and essentially compete with you on the first page of Google? You pay Google to be on Google, but when they Google you, you also compete with guys like BBB and Home Advisor.
Home Advisor is a mixed blessing. What you were talking about with the phone operator, if you can't get to that customer or that prospect right away, don't even bother. It requires instant communication. Otherwise, you're wasting your money. They're never going to hire you because they're being bombarded by a handful of similarly placed vendors who are going to get out there quicker. It can work. It absolutely can if you're going to obsess about it. BBB, I always look at BBB as, I'll pay for accreditation. It's extortion.
Pay to play.
It sucks, but to the people it matters to, it matters. And I don't expect it to drive a lot of business, but much like having a Facebook page that's curated and updated, you don't need to pay someone to post pictures for you. Certainly can, but you need a landing space that provides validation that says, hey, someone's awake at the business. Their last post wasn't in 2016. It needs to be catered to and cared for and curated. That's the word. With purpose. And same thing with BBB. If there's complaints you haven't responded to or you don't have accreditation, for a couple $1,000, it strikes me as a price of entry. It's like a tax. It sucks, but you're happy you paid it.
Love it. It just drives me crazy how they collect $200 million a year and still call it non-profit.
Yeah, lots of profit.
Lots of profit. Did you have to raise the capital to grow ZeroRez, or was all your own cash and capital?
So we looked at doing a capital raise, and so business partner in end of 08, beginning of 09 files for bankruptcy, and he was the lead investor, and so his personal guarantee was no longer something that the banks were excited about. Our credit cards got shut down, accounts get frozen, and we scrambled. We put out a RFP to a bunch of local banks and credit unions, and we found one that understood us. And we said, listen, look, we don't have the track record to show, 5 years of great history, but look what we're doing right now and look at our pipeline. Customers are waiting. We've got room to grow. Help us buy some trucks. And we said, hey, we want to buy 10 trucks. And they said, we'll give you 2. But we fostered that relationship and grew with them, and it was invaluable. So we ended up.
Was it a loan or was it?
Yeah, CapEx. So the model in carpet cleaning, once you hit a critical mass that you can cover your infrastructure, it's pretty easy. At the time we were doing maybe $25,000 a month per truck. It got up to low 30s per month per truck, but that was running a little harder than I would recommend. But say you're doing $26,000 a month. You've got a $78,000 piece of equipment. You put 5-year debt on it with 10 or 15, 20% down, fully insured, et cetera. It's $1,300 a month. So you've got $25,000 to $30,000 in revenue. Your cost of goods sold is 38%. You've got a $1,400 fully loaded debt service and insurance. There's plenty of margin there. So we were able to break that down and work with the banks to help them understand. But so we're running pretty hard. We're adding 10 10 trucks a year once we got moving and shaking. And my partner and I look at each other. We said, well, so we've got, $2.5 million of debt. What if nobody calls us back? Like, are we just going to burn through the market and, clean everyone once and then, we're stuck with millions of dollars? And we actually started obsessing about net promoter score. I don't know if you're familiar with that. So there's a book called The Ultimate Question. And basically you get these surveys all the time. And it says, on a scale of 1 to 10, how likely are you to refer this company to your friends and family? And the smart people who developed this basically said the percentage of promoters minus the percentage of detractors are what your net promoter score is. So someone who's going to promote you is going to give you a 9 or a 10 on that scale. Yeah, I'm gonna shout from the rooftops and tell people about this great company. Mm-hmm. People who give you a 7 or 8, they're passive. They're not going to hurt you. They're not going to help you. People who give you a 0 through 6, no, I will not refer you. They got a bone to pick, and those people are detractors. They're going to tell people all the nasty stuff. So we put in a process with a company called Listen 360 that basically got a net promoter score on every job. And the percentage of promoters minus percentage of detractors, we were able to quantify relative to industry norms and service company norms. Do people like us? And are they likely to repeat and refer? And when we first did it, we got probably, I don't know, maybe a 68 or a 70, which we learned that the average service company is about 45 percentage of promoters minus percentage of detractors. So we're 50% better. And we're like, well, that's great, but good's the enemy are great. So let's try and fix it. When I left the business, we were in the low 80s and, obsessed about it. We comped employees based on, in part, based on those scores. We trained based on the feedback we got. And I mean, it changed my life, that approach to customer satisfaction.
Wow.
But, we had this open issue, like, what if nobody calls us back and we're stuck with all these trucks? Do we keep buying trucks? We said, let's try to quantify happy and figure out if people are likely to engage. So what we
is it the third company who does this survey, or you do it within the company?
So we use Listen 360 to
Listen
do
360.
the net promoter score, but there's a bunch of companies out there. They had a great dashboard and whatnot. But so when we realized, okay, people like us and they like us a lot more than the average carpet cleaner or the average home service provider, what do we do with that? And we said, well, we can kind of, in talking about that apple tree, we can now set our customer acquisition really high. As long as we're not losing money, we don't need to make money on that first engagement because we're going to get the repeat business in all likelihood. If we don't fuck up the first time, we'll get that re-engagement down the road. And so we were able to buy customers very efficiently. In the Twin Cities, just Minneapolis, St. Paul, when I left the business, we had about 220,000 past customers in our database. And because we're buying customers left and right, using radio, SEO, pay-per-click, all that sort of stuff. And if you think about 220,000 customers, we could send an email and make $100,000. We could send a postcard and blow the roof off. We had control because we had built these marketing mechanisms and then could re-engage the customers. So it changed everything, knowing that customers were likely to repeat and were happy.
Did you advertise your prices online?
Yeah.
So your price always been. We have this big debate in the roofing industry now, and roofing industry is changing. And I'm a big advocate for being transparent with the price, even on a big roof. And roofers are very stubborn. We're getting a lot of pushback because they want to be the highest bidder, not the lowest bidder for sure, in the middle, but roofers not comfortable with the price online. And I've sold it back in the day in the Angels List. I sold the roofs $65,000, $7,000 tickets, selling online, like email. Angels List would send 130,000 emails to people in Minneapolis, and we would get like 30 sales per week, $6,500 minimum, and up to 17, 18 grand if it was bigger roofs and stuff with the fine print. And I I have ice dome removal business here, and we list price online. Average ticket $1,500. Never have problem to sell.
Yeah.
You have to know how to do it. Can you describe perfect owner operator? How many applicants did you get, like to become a franchisee, like franchise owners at ZEROREZ? What did you look for? What in people who wanted to open a branch of ZEROREZ somewhere?
So I wasn't the franchisor.
Okay.
I wasn't the person fielding the those requests. I did interview a lot of them, and it got to a point where the franchisor was paying us to do their training and onboarding. So I do have some qualifications to answer the question, but I wasn't,
Why would someone do that versus open their own?
It's a good question. So I was having a conversation with someone who was looking at opening a cryotherapy, I don't know what it's called, but in Las Vegas. And really cool concept. But I said, hey, make sure that they've fully vetted this out, because if you're going to pay someone 5, 8, 10% of revenue, when you think about it, if you're looking for a 15, 20% margin in your business, you've got a partner who's, a third of your business, right? They're a huge partner. What are you paying them for? So in theory, using the cryotherapy, they would have the experience and aptitude to say this location, not that location, this pricing model, not that pricing model, this demographic and customer flow and marketing system. All of these things have been vetted and proven in markets exactly like yours. And that's a pretty high bar. With ZeroRez, franchisees signed on because they saw that some franchisees were making money and they liked the story. It's a really dumb reason to buy something. But I didn't know what I didn't know, and bought something that looked and felt and acted a lot like a startup. And I would, if you're going to do a startup and it's really risky and the model's not fully vetted, don't pay a third party. Pay for education, find a licensed partner, find somebody that you can, absorb information from, go to conferences and workshops and conventions and get educated, but don't franchise. Franchising can be super valuable once they've vetted it out, and you can say, well, Pittsburgh homeowners walk like, act like, talk like, think like Minnesota homeowners in these important regards, and the model's vetted in Minnesota, you can take it to Pittsburgh. So when we were looking at opening another market for ZeroRez, we hired a third-party data firm to go out and survey customers in 10 different markets to figure out, are the things that make Minnesota a great environment for cleaning more carpet than anywhere else in America. I mean, we were one of the biggest carpet cleaning companies out there. Are the things that make the Minnesota homeowner tick relevant and prominent in Pittsburgh, in St. Louis, in Seattle, in Austin, in Charlotte, in 8 other places. So we spent like $25,000 doing that, and it sucked, but we were able to find places we could replicate the model.
Love it. I know you're obsessed with the customer and always have been, and love your score and stuff, but how many times have you been sued or close to being sued by the homeowners, by your customers?
By a homeowner,
Never
sued.
Never sued?
Definitely ran into some heated exchanges, and I'm a pragmatist. Messing around and giving up time and emotional energy to fight isn't productive. I would work to find solutions. Some homeowners just can't get there, and you pass them to insurance. And if it's insurable, great. If not, you write them a check. And
Home insurance or your insurance?
my insurance. So it's even better if their insurance will cover it, but assuming it won't, we had coverage in place.
What kind of liability are we talking about with the cleaning? Something broke, something?
You screw up a rug, you screw up a couch that you moved to get to the rug. And some people have $25,000, $30,000 rugs. Or, you mess up an HVAC system, or a problem arises with the HVAC system while you're cleaning the air ducts, and might not be your fault at all. But you do some math and figure out, all right, is it worth drawing this out, or is it worth paying to make the problem go away? And we were blessed to never be sued for problems we created, and some situations probably would have gone there, but we wrote a check. And I think we probably bought, the worst case was maybe buying a $15,000 rug.
What happened to the rug? Just damaged?
Crazy customer. Yeah, I'm sure we screwed something up or did something, but their expectations weren't managed.
$15,000 rug.
Yeah, it's good to be cleaning for those folks, but when you think about it, if we're going to charge maybe $1,200 to clean something for $15,000, it's a stupid business to be in.
Is that your highest ticket would be $1,200? Would you take such a job, or is it based on what you're cleaning, how delicate you have to be?
Some homes, we would have a $6,000 ticket for cleaning all the rugs in the home.
I see, because they're so big.
The cleaning process and the quality of the rug, the fragility, there's a big difference between something that's bulletproof from IKEA and something that was woven by women in Nepal and dyed with, beets and vegetables. But the spread between the two in terms of the cost, the risk reward just wasn't there.
I see.
But,
how many SKUs did you have? How many services did you offer to homeowner?
Probably, I don't know, 15,
So
20.
not that many.
Yeah.
Were you ever tempted to get into more service categories?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, we're crazy entrepreneurs, high visionaries, love the entrepreneurial stuff. So, there's vertical integration. There's, we looked at distributing product. We looked at, and eventually did start a carpet install business, cleaned air ducts, upholstery, tiling, grout, dealt with, biological.
What was the most profitable?
Probably pet services. So you're out there cleaning, and then, you've got urine in the carpet. There are charges for that. Or, there's smells in the carpet. There's charges for that. So kind of that deeper care for the core service. We're already there. The customer needs it. And heck, if you're going to spend $60 to make a room not smell like your dog's bladder, that's $60 well spent.
Sure. Trying to see if I miss anything. Almost done.
Uh-oh.
Give advice to a contractor or service provider who is building a business in order to sell it later. How do you build a sellable business? Because so many businesses are not sellable. It's owner operator. You're the employee of your business. People say they want to sell it, but nobody would buy it because you are the business.
It's something I run into all the time as I'm looking at acquiring businesses. And I've got a business I'm looking at right now that I just talked to my business partner this morning, and we're going to pass on it. They're doing about $5 million. They make $1 million every year. It's all subcontractors. The guy does roofing, siding, and masonry.
Wow.
And he's got his crews. Basically, he's got this great marketing machine, but he wants $3.5 million for it, which.
And he makes $1 million, so
he makes $1 million.
3.5 times net.
it's not an unreasonable ask, but there's no asset. Like I'm buying lead flow, and I could come up with a pricing structure where
They are the business. So without them,
he is the business. His phone is the business, and there are a lot of people who have a hard time wrapping around the difference between. They know an employee is different than having an asset and having a business, but they're miscategorizing where someone who is self-employed falls. And self-employed is very different than having a team, having systems, and like you said, Chuck in his truck, or the guy who is the business. They're self-employed. They don't have an asset because they are the business. So I would look at putting levels of not redundancy in place, but systems and people to operate the systems, so that you're really buying a machine or selling a machine rather than, hey, I've got a bunch of lead flow. So when I look at buying a business, a kind of informal metric I use to put a value on it is how many people in that business would need to be hit by a bus for it to fail. I call it a bus number. So if you have a high bus number, you've got layers of leadership and management and systems. And if you have a low bus number, you've got, a guy who is the business. And if they get hit by the bus, it's super, super fragile, and the business probably falters. But if an owner can take himself out of operations and have a team that's high functioning, and they can just hold the team accountable to the results, you exit the owner and, well, shit, the team and the machine keeps running. That's a business that's worth a lot more. The other thing would be stickiness of revenue. Are there ways to get reoccurring revenue where you really have a customer rather than a transaction?
I want to throw variable to to the business you just described. So same business, $5 million revenue, people running it right now, pocketing $1 million every year. What if they spend $300,000 to hire 3 managers, $100K each per year? So now they still do $5 million, but now they have 3 managers, and the net revenue is $700,000. But you have, let's say production manager, marketing manager maybe, and sales manager. So you have 3 people under the owners. So less profit, but more steady business that operates without the owners, because you have 3 people in managing positions, making everyone's accountable. And even if the owners are not there, you as potential investors can still rely on 3 more people with the great salaries. Would that business worth more to you? And
absolutely. And it's crazy because people would say, well, why don't you just buy the one business and put 3 leaders in place?
it's hard. That's hard.
That's hard. And if I'm going to do all the hard work, it's a lot less fun to buy. But I would absolutely consider a business that, if the owner truly is just conducting the orchestra, not playing all the instruments, and they've got a team in place.
Even with the lesser revenue, it's still worth more money. Would you agree?
100%. I would love to own the business that this guy's built that's, doing $5 million and making $1 million every year. I just can't justify paying millions of dollars for it. I would have a very easy time putting a value on something that makes $700,000 every year, has a stable team in place. It's just a question of do I have an interest in the industry, and how it's night and day.
Love it. And that's what I tell people when they ask me, because so many people in our industry, at least, they trying to do it all. They trying to wear all the hats. And the challenge with that is, when you wear all the hats, you don't have a business. You are the business, and you don't have a sellable business. So yeah, you make more money. And some people are not willing to hire more people to make less. They don't want to share. But the challenge is, you don't have to share. You don't have to show profit. You can write it off every year. But then you also don't have anything to sell. You don't have anything to pass to your kids, because your kids will have to get a full-time job in your business
Yeah.
to do what you do.
Well,
That's the hardest thing.
You're self-employed and you've got great income, but a lot less wealth. If you have an asset that is self-sustaining and prints money every year, but doesn't take up all your time because you're not the only one in the business, that's the makings for wealth.
Love it. We are having a lot of offers coming to the roofing industry now, more than ever. Last 3 years, I have people sitting here, like 5 or 6. I personally interviewed who have equity money now. So you have Wall Street guys and private equity firms buying into roofing businesses, and what roofers are getting are these offers. So they go through NDAs and audits. Can you give advice to someone who is entertaining cash offers? Like, because some of them go crazy, they can't believe the offers they're getting. Some of them don't know what to do, what to share. Give advice to someone who may be being solicited to sell to bigger organization or equity firm.
Well, I would start with the notion that the dollars are maybe half the equation. And let's say, okay, they're offering 7 times earnings. Great. That's an obscene, beautiful multiple. The terms are just as important as the millions of dollars you're going to get. So a lot of private equity and funds, that professional money that's coming in, they're going to want you to work in the business for probably 3 years, maybe 5 years. A lot of your earnings are going to be contingent upon performance. So do you want to be in a situation where, okay, you've got a pretty low floor and a capped ceiling? You go from being an entrepreneur to an employee with no vote that now has a boss that is hoping to hit that ceiling, and then you have to hand the keys over a handful of years later. So I'm not saying it's a bad thing. It can be fantastic. And a lot of deals have upside where, okay, you sell 50% today or 60% today for 7X, and then you get a second bite of the apple after the private equity has put money into the business and helped build a team around you so you're more effective and you don't have to run as much of the business. That can be a windfall. It can be great money. But really make sure that you know what it's like. You're not walking away. When you're getting that kind of money, you usually have to, put up or shut up and act like a W-2 for a handful of years and perform at a very high level for a handful of years. So there's a lot of ways to make money. And I would just make sure that you go in eyes wide open. The other thing that jumps out, I would encourage people, anybody looking at taking professional money like that, talk to other people who've already done it and have them, tell you the pros and cons.
Do you see a lot of regrets of people who've sold the businesses?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I had a neighbor who had a huge concrete company and a snow and mow company, and he sold the snow and mow, commercial service contracts for a ton of money to private equity. And he said he was, spent 4 years going to board meetings, sitting in the corner, not having a voice. And he kept 20% of it. And his second bite of the apple when he sold that 20% was worth almost more than the first 80% that he sold. They did some things he never could have done. And he was miserable doing it.
Why?
It was a painful process. Tony Hsieh wrote a fantastic book called Delivering Happiness. He founded Zappos. And in that book, he talks about, and I recommend it, a great customer service book. He sold, I think, his first business to Microsoft and walked after 12 or 18 months before he had fully vested all of the money he was going to make. He left millions and millions and millions, tens of millions on the table because he just couldn't stand the culture, couldn't stand not having a voice, couldn't do his thing. But he said it's not worth eating shit every day. Trading misery for dollars is not often a recipe that tastes very good.
You know who I often think about is Craig, the founder of Craigslist. I don't know his last name, but I think he sold. Is it what's the platform where not buy online? eBay.
Sure.
So I think eBay owns like 16% or something of Craigslist, and they wanted more. They wanted control, and they always been fighting because he is one of those owners, like old school. So he loves Craigslist and everything about it. And despite the fact that he's been offered millions and millions, and he just does not give a crap. He's like, nope, this is what Craigslist is. And if you follow Craigslist, it did not change. It's still the same Craigslist. It was like 20 years.
Yeah.
Exactly. But I think eBay was, I remember reading about their fights because they invested, but he still had control, and they wanted him to do stuff, and he did not want to do it. And as I read that story, I mean, yes, he sold shares. They're not happy because they did not get power, and he's not happy to do anymore. And
yeah,
like that's how the owners are. I've sold one of their businesses, and I worked for it for a year and got out of it 9 months later. And I remember, like, I still wake up every morning. I'm workaholic. I'm early bird. It was a flooring business, so I sold it to my friends, and they did not care for it. They just needed me to do all their floors. And I built that business for them. We were doing like 15, 20 carpet jobs per week in Atlanta, Georgia. And I remember 5, 6 in the morning, I'm in the warehouse on a forklift organizing tiles, and they were asking me, what do you do here? I'm like, this is what I do. Like, I have to work. Like, I sold you my company and I didn't have to do it. But when you're the owner, you have to be productive. There's self-esteem that comes from fruit of your labor. And you cannot be the guy in the corner letting other people make decisions, even if it's a good decision, and making you reach.
It breaks your heart. And, so one other anecdote, I've got a good friend who owns an electrician company in the Twin Cities. And I was brought on to buy their marketing. I bought their radio and their digital at the beginning of 2020. And they were doing about $4.5 million or so. In about September of 2022, they sold to private equity. He kept 40%, sold 60%. They were doing about 12 million. What changed? The marketing. So I did a pretty good job, right?
Yeah.
They fired me.
Wow.
And there was no hard feelings, still love the guy, but the smart money from New York came in and said, we're going to use our guy. And so the marketing magic, I was talking with Mark, the business owner, and he's like, listen, it's a political fight. I don't have a voice. I have a couple of times I can raise my hand and demand something, but this battle's not worth it. I hope you understand. And I loved buying media for him. He was spending, I don't know, $45,000 a month with me, and Banana Stand marketing, but it didn't wreck my business. It was just tomfoolery, and I barked as loud as I could bark and said, okay, call me if you need me. But like that's the kind of stuff where, okay, why would you mess with the recipe that's working so well? About tripled your business in a couple of years. Using the tactics and the messaging and our secret sauce, and they say, well, we're going to do something different. That's not always the case with private equity. Sometimes they say, hey, do what you want to do and keep doing what's working. But most of these folks, the reason I wanted to get into private equity, but I didn't want to be one of those jokers who was a spreadsheet jockey who had never actually run a business and didn't know how these companies actually make their money. So I wanted to do payroll. I wanted to understand how you staff and be in the business. I intended to do it for about 3 years, ended up spending 12 doing it at Zero Rez, but was a very different approach to private equity when I was ready to go out and start a private equity company, because I had been boots on the ground and been in management. Some dude in New York, saying, well, we can get efficiencies if we do this, this, and this. It's very easy to screw up.
Love it. Well, Mike, it was amazing episode, guys. Comment below what you think. If you have any questions or comments about the topics, how do people find you? I know you have a book. Just give me all your credentials.
Yeah. So the easiest way is bananastandmarketing.com. I don't know if you watch Arrested Development, but it's a great show on Netflix. And there's always money in the banana stand is the joke. So
I see.
Watch it. You'll love it.
Okay.
But bananastandmarketing.com. And if I can be helpful, we've got all sorts of partners with all sorts of experience in roofing and exterior cleaning services, and everything from electrical to pressure washing. So we run the gamut. Car dealerships and restaurants, and love to have a chat about marketing or about business or whatever I can be useful for.
Love it. Thank you so much, Mike. Guys, comment below if this episode brought any value to you. Subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.
Thanks so much. It's awesome.
That was awesome. Oh.